The moment police burst into the small apartment in Los Angeles, everything came crashing down at once. Guns were found, maps were spread across tables. Handwritten notes listed military bases, synagogues, and government buildings. What looked like a quiet group of men had been planning something far darker. As officers shouted commands and snapped on handcuffs, one truth became clear. This terror plot did not begin on the streets. It began behind prison walls. And it all started years earlier, inside California's Folsom prison. What shocked investigators most was not just the targets, it was where the idea was born. A maximum security prison, a place meant to stop crime, not create it. Yet inside Folsom prison, a radical cell quietly took shape. Its name was Jamiyyat Ul-Islam Is-Saheeh, known simply as JIS. Few outside the prison had ever heard of it, but soon the entire country would. As suspects were taken away, detectives traced the roots of the plot backwards. Every path led to one man, an inmate who once walked the prison yard like any other prisoner. His name was Kevin James, and years before this raid, while locked behind steel doors, he had planted an idea that refused to die. The story does not begin with bombs or arrests. It begins with words. Inside Folsom prison, Kevin James presented himself as calm, confident, and deeply religious. He spoke about faith, discipline, and purpose. To some inmates, he seemed like a guide. To others, a teacher. But hidden beneath his calm voice was a dangerous belief. James taught that violence was justified, that America was the enemy, and that true believers must prepare for war. Prison is a place where people feel lost. Many inmates are angry, scared, or searching for meaning. James understood this. He targeted men who felt weak or forgotten. Slowly, quietly, he built trust. Then he built loyalty. JIS was born not in secret tunnels or dark basements, but during conversations in prison yards and cells. Guards saw inmates praying together and thought little of it. Religious practice was allowed, but what they did not hear were the lessons that followed. James preached that attacks on U.S. targets were not crimes, but duties. He talked about soldiers, police, and Jewish communities as enemies. He told his followers that prison was not the end, it was training. As time passed, James gained influence. JIS was not a large group, but it did not need to be. Every member believed deeply. They memorized ideas, they talked about action, and most importantly, they planned for the day they would walk free. Then came the turning point. Kevin James was released from prison. To most people, it looked like a normal release, another inmate returning to society. But to JIS, it was a signal. The ideas planted behind bars were now ready to move into the real world. Outside prison, James reunited with former inmates who had listened to him inside. One of them was LeVar Washington, younger, aggressive, and eager to prove himself. Washington took James's teaching seriously, very seriously. Together, they began talking about targets. Not just talking, preparing. They planned robberies to raise money. They talked about weapons. They studied locations. The prison walls were gone, but the prison mindset followed them. What had started as prison talk was becoming a real threat.
Law enforcement did not yet know how close danger was. JIS members blended into normal life, jobs, families, quiet streets. But behind closed doors, the ideas from Folsom Prison were alive and growing. Each step forward made it harder to turn back. Then something unexpected happened. One member began to feel fear. The plans were becoming too real, the danger too close. That fear would soon change everything. As investigators would later learn, the group was days, maybe weeks away from violent action. The line between belief and bloodshed was thinning fast, and inside a small group of men shaped by prison ideology, one wrong move could trigger disaster. Just as JIS believed they were ready to act, the outside world was about to crash in on them, and when it did, it would expose how a prison cell had nearly become the birthplace of terror on American soil. But what exactly stopped them, and how close did they come to carrying out their plans? The knock at the door did not come loudly. It came quietly, almost polite. Inside the apartment, the men were talking about the next step. Guns lay nearby. Plans were already moving. None of them knew that law enforcement had been watching for weeks. One small crack inside the group had turned into a wide opening, and danger was closing in fast. It started when one member could no longer carry the weight of what they were planning. The talk of killing soldiers and attacking synagogues no longer felt like words. It felt real. He saw a prison again in his future, or worse. Fear pushed him to make a choice that would save lives and destroy the group from the inside. He went to the police. From that moment on, every meeting was being watched. Every word was being recorded. The man who once sat quietly in prison listening to Kevin James now became the key to stopping JIS. Investigators learned that the group was planning armed robberies to raise money. The money was meant for weapons and supplies. This was not just talk anymore. This was preparation. Undercover officers stepped in carefully. They listened, they waited, they followed the group as it moved from planning to action. One robbery took place at a gas station. It was violent. A man was shot. That single act changed everything. What had been a terror plot was now soaked in blood. Police knew they had enough. The arrests came fast. Homes were searched, weapons were seized, maps and notes were collected. When officers laid everything out, the picture was clear. This group did not form by accident. It had a leader, and that leader's voice came from inside Folsom Prison. James was arrested again. This time, the charges were far more serious. Prosecutors showed how JIS began inside prison walls. They showed how James used religion as a tool, twisting faith into a weapon. They explained how prison gave him time, audience, and control. In court, former members testified. They talked about the early days inside Folsom, how James spoke with confidence, how he promised purpose, how he made prison feel like training for something bigger. Jurors listened as they heard how easy it was for lost men to follow someone who sounded certain. James did not deny his beliefs. He stood by them. That silence, that calm, made the courtroom uneasy. He was sentenced to life in prison. The same walls where his ideas were born would now hold him forever. But the story did not end there. Law enforcement began asking hard questions. How did this happen? How did a terror cell grow inside a U.S. prison without being noticed? The answers were uncomfortable. Prisons were overcrowded. Guards were stretched thin. Religious freedom made monitoring harder. Extremist talk could hide behind prayer. Experts warned that JIS was not an isolated case. It was rare but real. Prison could become a place where dangerous ideas grow if no one is watching closely. Folsom Prison became a warning sign for the entire country. For families of potential targets, the relief was mixed with fear. Relief that the plot was stopped, fear that others might not be caught in time. The idea that terror could begin behind bars shocked many Americans. Inside prisons across the U.S., policies began to change. Monitoring increased. Inmates with extremist ties were separated. Communication was watched more closely. The system tried to learn from JIS before it was too late. But one question remained. If this group was stopped only because someone got scared, how many others were still silent? Behind concrete walls and locked doors, conversations continued. Ideas were still shared. and the shadow of Folsom Prison stretched far beyond California. Because even though JIS was destroyed, the conditions that created it still existed. And somewhere, behind bars, someone was listening, someone else was learning, and someone else was waiting. What happens when the next voice speaks up inside prison walls?
The steel door slammed shut, echoing through the prison hallway. Kevin James was back where his ideas were born. This time, there would be no release date, no second chance. The judge's words were final: life in prison. As guards led him away, James did not look angry. He did not look afraid. He looked calm. That calm scared people more than shouting ever could. Outside the courtroom, families of possible victims stood quietly. They had learned how close the danger came. Military bases, synagogues, public places, all almost touched by violence that started with words inside a prison yard. Law enforcement officers knew they had stopped something terrible, but none of them felt like celebrating, because stopping JIS did not erase the problem. Inside American prisons, officials began reviewing years of footage, reports, and inmate behavior. They asked how a radical group could grow in a place designed to control people. The answer was not simple. Prison is not just punishment, it is pressure. And under pressure, people look for meaning. Experts explained that Kevin James did not use force to build JIS. He used time. He talked. He listened. He waited. He found men who felt broken and gave them a story where they mattered. That story was dangerous, but it felt powerful. Guards admitted that extremist talk often sounds like normal religion. Prayer groups form every day in prisons. Most are harmless. That made it easy for JIS to hide. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, the ideas were already deep. After the case, prisons across the country changed how they watched inmates tied to extremist beliefs. Known leaders were separated. Conversations were monitored more closely. Officers received training to spot warning signs. But even with these changes, no one claimed the system was perfect. One investigator said something chilling during a closed meeting. He said, "Ideas do not stay locked up just because people are." Those words stayed with everyone in the room. The men who followed James faced their own futures: long sentences, quiet cells, time to think. Some said they were sorry, others stayed silent. Whether they truly changed or simply learned to hide their thoughts was something no one could be sure of. For the man who turned informant, life became complicated. He helped stop the plot, but the price was heavy. He lived with guilt, fear, and the knowledge that one choice saved lives while destroying his old world. Protection programs moved him far away, but the memory never left. Years passed. The JIS case became part of training manuals, a warning story told to new officers, a reminder that danger does not always look loud or angry. Sometimes it looks calm. Sometimes it sounds like faith. Folsom Prison continued to operate as it always had. New inmates arrived, old ones left, the yard filled with voices again. But for those who knew the story, the walls felt different. They had heard what happened when no one listened closely enough. Families across America never knew how close they came to tragedy. That was the goal: quiet prevention. No explosions, no headlines filled with blood. Just a plot stopped before it could begin. But late at night, when prisons go quiet, the question still lingers. Can a place built to hold criminals also change how they think? Or does it sometimes give the wrong voice the perfect room to grow? The JIS case proved one thing beyond doubt. Terror does not always start with weapons. Sometimes it starts with a conversation. And somewhere behind bars, right now, another conversation may already be happening.
The walls are thick, but ideas travel fast. And the next warning sign may already be too quiet to hear. The lights in Folsom prison flickered as night fell. The yard was empty, the corridors silent. But inside a single cell, a conversation was beginning that could change everything. It wasn't loud. No one outside would notice. Just two men quietly talking. One had been in trouble before. The other was new. Both were curious. Both were searching for meaning. And that's when the danger was born again. Prison officials often say the walls are thick enough to hold people in. But ideas slip through any barrier. Kevin James's story had ended behind bars, but the lessons he taught, the sense of purpose he offered, did not disappear. New inmates listened. New inmates asked questions, and some of those questions carried seeds of something far darker. Outside, law enforcement kept a careful eye on former JIS members. They had broken the first group, arrested the leader, and warned the public. Yet every success was also a reminder. There are always more who could follow the same path. Every prison in the nation became a potential incubator for extremism. Guards patrolled more closely, monitors checked communications, and training programs expanded. But no system is perfect, and no one can control what goes on in private conversations behind cell doors. Back inside the prison, the new group quietly built trust among themselves. They shared stories of hardship, dreams of significance, and slowly, the conversations became structured. Plans were whispered about. Ideology was discussed. No one mentioned names outside the walls. No weapons were found, but the framework, the foundation of influence, was forming. Meanwhile, the public remained largely unaware. For them, Folsom was just another prison, a place for punishment. But for those paying attention, the JIS case had proven one chilling reality. A prison can be more than just steel and concrete. It can be a classroom for dangerous ideas. As the night stretched on, the conversation grew more intense. Questions were asked, answers were given, loyalties formed. What started as curiosity had begun to solidify into something organized, something intentional. And if left unchecked, it could one day become just as dangerous as JIS once was. Somewhere in the corner of the cell, one inmate paused, his eyes narrowed. He had learned something from past stories, from whispers of Kevin James and the men who had followed him. He knew that what happens inside here could reach far beyond these walls, and he began to take notes, quietly, carefully, every word, every lesson, every plan. And that is when the real suspense begins. Because the cycle of influence in prisons does not stop. Ideas travel faster than guards can move. Belief can ignite where no one is watching. And while Kevin James's chapter had ended, another was quietly starting. Somewhere in America, the next cell was listening, learning, and waiting. And the question hangs in the air, heavier than steel bars. Who will stop it before it's too late? The story of JIS at Folsom Prison is over, but the danger it reveals is far from gone. Prisons are not just buildings of steel and concrete. They are spaces where ideas can grow, quietly, invisibly, and sometimes dangerously. One inmate's voice can inspire many, and one conversation can change lives forever. As we've seen, it doesn't always take weapons or explosions to create terror. Sometimes all it takes is influence, patience, and the right audience. Law enforcement can intervene, plans can be stopped, and lives can be saved, but the risk never truly disappears. The walls of America's prisons hold more than prisoners. They hold stories, lessons, and warnings. And while JIS may have been stopped, there are always other voices waiting, other ideas forming, and other paths that could lead to danger
if no one is watching. The question now is simple and chilling. Are we listening closely enough before the next story begins?